My name is Hailey, I'm 33 years old, and I swear, if you told me a year ago that I'd be standing in the middle of my mother's living room with police lights flashing outside, being accused of something I didn't do, I'd have laughed in your face. But that's exactly where life threw me. If you're new here, hi, welcome to my story. And if you enjoy real-life inspired stories like this, the kind that make you question family, loyalty, and revenge, well, make sure you subscribe and stay till the end, because what happened next will make you rethink what family really means. Started on a Tuesday. Rainy, gray, and quiet. The kind of day that feels like something's about to happen. I had just gotten off a 10-hour nursing shift, my scrub still smelling faintly of antiseptic and coffee. When I walked into the house, I could hear laughter. High-pitched, chaotic, and too familiar. My sister's kids. 4 of them. And then, sitting in the middle of the couch like a queen in chaos, was Jessica, my older sister. Her long hair was pulled up in a messy bun, a half-empty cup of soda beside her, and her face beaming with that same careless glow I'd seen too many times. "Guess what ails?" she said as soon as I dropped my keys on the counter. I didn't even get to take off my shoes. "What?" I sighed, already bracing myself. She grinned, rubbing her stomach like she was in a Hallmark movie. "I'm pregnant again." Froze. For a moment I thought she was joking, that this was another one of her dramatic pranks. But when I saw the flicker of pride in her eyes, the small smirk that followed, I felt my chest tighten. "Jess, are you serious?" 5th time. I shrugged. "What? Kids are blessings." "Blessings," I repeated, trying not to lose it. "You don't even take care of the ones you have." That was the thing with Jessica. She had a way of making disaster look casual. 4 kids, 4 different fathers, and somehow all of them under the same roof as me and Mom. Every time she messed up, I was the one patching things up, babysitting, buying school supplies, paying bills that weren't mine. And now, another one. I sat down slowly, my exhaustion turning into something sharp and bitter. "Jess, I can't keep doing this. I'm done. You're 35. You need to start being a mother." She gave me that look, the one that always made me feel guilty, small, like I was the bad guy for caring too much. "You think I don't know what I'm doing? You think you're better than me because you have a job and no kids?" "I think I'm tired," I said quietly. "Tired of raising yours." That was it. The sentence that cracked something between us. That night I packed a small suitcase. Not all my stuff, just the essentials. My mother tried to stop me, but she didn't say much. She never did. She was one of those women who believed peace was more important than truth. "Hailey, don't make a scene," she whispered as she followed me to the door. "Jessica needs you right now." "No, Mom," I said, holding back tears. "She doesn't need me. She needs consequences." When I closed that door behind me, I felt something shift inside, like I had finally exhaled after years of holding my breath. I found a small apartment 20 minutes away. It wasn't much, just a studio with thin walls and flickering lights, but it was mine. For the first time in years, I woke up to silence. No crying babies. No spilled milk. No screaming matches. Just peace. Or so I thought. It was 2 weeks later when the call came. I was on my way home from work when my phone buzzed. "Mom," flashing on the screen. I smiled at first, thinking she was checking in. But when I answered, her voice was trembling. "Hailey, the police are here." I pulled over instantly. "What? Why? What happened?" "It's Jessica," she whispered. "She said you took something from her." "Take something," I repeated, my pulse quickening. "Mom, what are you talking about?" But before she could finish, I heard a male voice in the background. Deep, firm, official. "Ma'am, we'll handle it from here." The line went dead. For a long moment, I just sat there in my car, staring at the raindrops on my windshield. Jessica had called the cops on me. But why? And what could I have possibly taken that justified bringing the police into this? That was the beginning, the crack that turned into a landslide. The drive back to my mother's house felt longer than usual. Every red light stretched into eternity, and my thoughts spiraled in every direction. What could Jessica possibly have told the police? We hadn't spoken since I left. I hadn't even gone near the house. By the time I pulled into the driveway, 2 police cruisers were already there, their red and blue lights flashing against the wet pavement. The neighborhood kids had gathered on the sidewalk, whispering, pointing. I got out of the car, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. "Excuse me, ma'am," one of the officers said, stepping toward me. He was tall, mid-40s, calm voice. His badge read Officer Ramirez. "Are you Hailey Martin?" "Yes," I said, my throat dry. "What's going on?" He looked at his notepad before answering. "We received a report of theft. Your sister, Jessica Martin, claims you entered this residence last night and took an envelope containing cash and personal documents." I blinked. "Excuse me," he continued, unfazed. "She says there was approximately $2,000 missing from her bedroom drawer." I laughed. Not the polite kind, the bitter "are you kidding me" kind. "I haven't even been here in 2 weeks. You can check my phone, my job logs, anything. I work night shifts." He studied me for a moment, maybe noticing the trembling in my hands. "Ma'am, we're just here to talk. Nobody's under arrest. Yet." That "yet" landed like a blade. I took a step toward the porch. "Can I at least talk to my mother?" He nodded once but warned gently. "Keep it civil." Inside, the house smelled like baby powder and burnt toast. It looked the same except colder, like all the laughter had been drained out. My mom stood by the kitchen doorway, her eyes red. And on the couch sat Jessica, holding a tissue like some wronged princess. The moment she saw me, she crossed her arms. "Oh, look who decided to show up." "Jessica," I said slowly, forcing calm. "What's this about?" "You know exactly what it's about," she snapped. "You came here last night. You took the envelope from my drawer. That money was for my kids." I stared at her, stunned. "I didn't even know you had an envelope. Are you out of your mind?" Mom tried to step in, her voice small. "Girls, please." "No, Mom." Jessica's tone rose. "She thinks she's better than me, walking out like she's the victim. Well, now she's stealing from me." I felt my jaw tighten. "You think I want your money? The one you begged from your latest boyfriend?" Her eyes flashed. "You're jealous." "Jealous? Of what?" "A life where you make chaos and blame everyone else for cleaning it up. That did it." She lunged forward, and if Officer Ramirez hadn't stepped in between us, I swear she would have swung. "All right, that's enough," he said firmly. "We're not here to solve family disputes. Miss Martin," he turned to me, "if you have nothing to hide, I'd suggest coming down to the station to make a statement." "I have plenty to say," I shot back. "Let's go." At the station, the room was colder, brighter, the kind of place where truth feels heavy. I sat under fluorescent lights, giving my statement to a younger officer who kept typing without looking up. "I left the house 2 weeks ago," I said, my voice steady now. "You can check cameras from my apartment building. You'll see I didn't go anywhere near that address." He nodded. "Do you know if anyone else had access to your sister's room?" I almost laughed again. "Half the neighborhood, probably. She has boyfriends coming and going, kids everywhere. If something went missing, trust me, it wasn't me." He finished typing, then said quietly, "We'll investigate. In the meantime, I'd suggest keeping distance from the property." Distance. I'd been doing that all my life, and it still wasn't enough. That night, I sat on my apartment floor, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the flickering TV. I tried to convince myself it would all blow over, that the truth would come out and Jessica would move on to her next drama. But then my phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. "You should have stayed gone. Now you'll see what happens when you cross family." Froze. No name, no context. But I knew that tone. That venom. Jessica. Something dark twisted in my stomach. This wasn't just sibling drama anymore. She wanted a war. The next morning I went to work trying to distract myself. But as soon as I clocked in, my supervisor pulled me aside. "Hailey, can I talk to you?" Her tone was formal, cautious, the kind people use when something's already decided. I followed her into her office. "We got a call," she said carefully. "Someone reported that you were under investigation for theft." My heart dropped. "What?" she sighed. "You know our policy. We can't have unresolved legal issues with staff who handle patient records or medications. We'll have to suspend you until this is cleared." I wanted to speak to explain, but my voice broke. "You think I would steal?" "I don't," she said softly. "But the system does." I drove home in silence. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel. My sister hadn't just embarrassed me. She'd taken my livelihood, my peace, my sanity. And something inside me hardened that day. If she wanted a war, I would give her one. But not with shouting or chaos. No, I'd do it quietly, strategically. The way she'd never see coming. I would take back everything she'd stolen from me. My reputation, my dignity. And I'd make sure the truth came out. Even if it meant burning bridges I'd spent my whole life trying to build. The thing about rage is it can either burn you up or fuel you to move. Chose movement. First, I needed facts. Not gossip, not feelings, not the half-baked accusations my family traded like currency. Dates, names, receipts, anything that proved I'd been framed and, better yet, proved what kind of mess Jessica was really hiding. I started small. I went back to Mom's house under the pretense of checking on things. I told them I wanted to return a few of Mom's recipe books and pick up some photos, something that sounded harmless enough. My real plan was to look without looking. The living room still smelled like the same lemon-scented cleaner Mom favored. Toys were strewn like tiny landmines. Jessica sat at the kitchen table counting something from a worn envelope. Her expression strangely focused, almost businesslike. A method to her madness I'd never seen before. "Hey," she said without looking up. "You can drop the photo album off in the hallway." "Sure," I lied, smiling like I'd swallowed a lemon. While she was distracted, I slipped into her bedroom. Quiet, precise, practiced. Her door was unlocked as always. I told myself I was only retrieving evidence I had every right to see. The part of me that used to make excuses for her was dead in that moment. Her dresser drawer was the obvious place to start. I pulled it open and sifted through old receipts, expired gift cards, and a crumpled lottery ticket from 3 months ago. Then I found the envelope. It was empty. The liner was stained with coffee. On top of the pile was a sticky note in a handwriting that tried too hard to be neat. "Kids' school, do not touch." I slid it into my pocket like a trophy and kept looking. Underneath the mattress, behind a loose board in the floor, I found a shoebox. Inside were stacks of envelopes, some open, some not, labeled with dates and names. Rent, car, school. Some had cash in them. Others had receipts for odd purchases. A mechanic's shop in the next town, a storage unit on the edge of town, a gas station that sold receipts by the dozen. One envelope had a business card clipped to it. "Ramon, quick cash loans." My stomach dropped. It was one thing to be chaotic. It was another to run a ledger. Running numbers for a mother who forgot to pay bills didn't fit with a person who left crumbs of chaos and charm behind. This was organized. This was intentional. At the bottom of the box I found a small spiral notebook. Page after page were lists. Names, phone numbers, times. The way it was written made my skin tighten. These weren't babysitter calls or grocery lists. There were coded short notes. Pick up 9 p.m. R. Drop 2 a.m. I snapped a photo of the pages with my phone, careful to wipe the camera lens afterward so fingerprints wouldn't bob like ghosts in an evidence photo. The next piece of the puzzle came from a different corner. A neighbor, Mrs. Klein, used to gossip like it was oxygen. She'd been a nuisance when I still lived there, but she was also a gold mine. I cornered her while she was watering her begonias. "You seen Jesse's boyfriends lately?" I asked, casual as a warm day. Mrs. Klein's eyes lit up. "Oh honey, too many. But there's one, dark hair, greasy jacket. Drives a beat-up van. I thought he worked nights. Keeps coming with big envelopes." She lowered her voice. "Last week, I saw him loading boxes into that storage place on Willow. Closed up by the train tracks." That name, Willow Storage, was a sliver of light. I wrote it down on the back of my hand. After I left, I drove past the storage facility. It sat behind a chain-link fence, fluorescent lights buzzing like caged bees. I didn't go in. I didn't need to. I took pictures from the street. A rusted gate, a keypad, the scuff marks a van's tires made where someone had backed into a unit. The man with the greasy jacket's van was there, parked 3 units down. A logo was half peeling from the door. Ramon's Movers. Now I had names, a place, and a pattern. The envelope that was missing had probably been moved, maybe placed in a storage unit, maybe handed to someone who traded cash for discretion. If Jessica was running errands for someone, or worse, hiding money to pay off whatever trouble she'd gotten into, she had a motivation to scream theft when the truth smelled like embarrassment. Anger and relief warred in me. It was a relief to find breadcrumbs that suggested I hadn't magically turned into a housebreaker, but anger at the betrayal curled hot and bright. She hadn't just called the cops. She'd weaponized the system against me. She'd forced the hospital to suspend me, and she'd put my job on ice because she wanted to cover her tracks. At the end of the day, I sat on my apartment bed and tried to map the plan. Evenings of nursing taught me to triage. Stabilize first, then treat. My first priority was my job. I needed to clear my name at the hospital before anything else. But to do that, I had to prove the accusation was manufactured. I made a list. It was ridiculous how satisfying it felt to scratch things off. Get proof I wasn't at the house the night the envelope disappeared. Apartment security camera. Co-workers as alibis. Trace where Jessica's cash had been going. Storage unit records, receipts. Find the Ramon who popped up in receipts and Mrs. Klein's gossip. Collect witness statements. People who'd seen questionable activity, boyfriends, van, anyone. The first item was easy. My building's manager, a man named Dave who loved baseball and authority, had a grainy camera facing the lot. He was skeptical when I asked for footage, but when I mentioned police, he obliged. The video showed my car in the lot all night. Timestamp, 2:13 a.m., headlights off. 6:42 a.m., headlights flick on. A blur that could have been me leaving for my shift. I had my badge, my ID swipes. My supervisor's verification that I'd been on duty. I saved the footage to my phone and sent a copy to myself and 2 trusted friends for safekeeping. The second and third items were messier. Storage units didn't love giving up information without paperwork. Ramon's Movers was a small business with no online footprint. But people leave digital footprints these days. Photos, social media check-ins, the careless posts of people who think they're invisible. I scrolled through a dozen public profiles tagged near the storage lot. Seedy bars, late-night diners, people with names that matched numbers in the spiral notebook. I started compiling a ledger of my own, pages that mirrored what I'd found in her shoebox, only less neat. As I worked, I realized I had more than evidence. I had motive. Not mine, hers. She'd been hiding money, moving it around, possibly funneling it to someone with enough power or threat to blackmail a woman into silence. And she'd thrown me under the bus to prevent anyone from looking too closely. Revenge at that stage wasn't about violent payback or cinematic explosions. It was arithmetic and patience and quiet pressure. Restore my name, expose the ledger, let the truth take the form of documents and timestamps. Make her mistakes stick to her like glue. The final bullet on that night's list wasn't tactical. It was personal. I would make her understand the cost of playing with people's lives. When I turned the lights off, the apartment hummed. The plan was forming, clean and cruel. I'd been the grown-up for too long. Now, for the first time, I felt like someone who could orchestrate a reckoning. Slow, surgical, unavoidable. And I would start with that van and Ramon. I learned early on that the world talks, if you know where to listen. People spill the small things, names, times, offhand details. And those small things stitch together into a picture you can't ignore. Ramon talked too much. The storage facility hummed under sodium lights that night, the chain-link fence throwing shadows like a bad film noir. I parked a block away, low-beamed headlights, engine off. My phone was in my lap, screen lit with the photos I'd taken earlier. The unit numbers, the van parked 3 doors down, the rusted logo with the words Ramon's Movers. I ate my coffee cold and watched the gate with a patience that felt foreign to me. At 10:47 p.m., headlights split the dark. The van eased past the gate, then parked by a unit with a faded number, 31. A man climbed out. Late 30s, broad shoulders, hair in a greasy wave, jacket that had seen better winters. He moved with the sort of familiarity that says this is his routine. He carried a duffel bag to the unit. 2 minutes later, a young woman in a hoodie appeared from the darkness and ducked in behind him. He shut the door, and for a moment the world looked like a still photograph. Just the two of them and the humming lights. I thumbed record on my phone and kept a distance. I didn't want to show my face. They were inside the unit less than 10 minutes. When they came out, the woman left the way she came. Ramon lingered, counting money under the sodium glow. He stuffed a small envelope into his jacket pocket, then looked up straight at my car. For a second I thought he'd come over, angry, suspicious. Instead, he climbed into the van and drove off. I waited, heart hammering, and when he pulled into the street I followed at a safe distance. He turned onto Maple and pulled into the diner on the corner, an all-night place that smelled like grease and coffee and lost conversations. He parked, went in, and I sat in my car across the street pretending not to breathe. The diner's neon sign buzzed. Open 24 hours. The place was half empty. Night workers, people with problems, the kind of late-night audience that noticed everything and forgets nothing. I walked in like I belonged. Calm steps, steady hands. He was at a booth in the back, sugar packets in a ceramic jar, a cup of coffee gone cold beside his plate. He looked up when I approached, a slow narrowing of the eyes. "Ramon?" I asked casual. He blinked. "You got a wrong guy, lady." "Maybe." I pulled out my phone and set it on the table with the recorder running, a small, deliberate click. "Maybe I don't. Mind if I sit?" He shrugged like he had nothing to lose. "Do what you want." I sat opposite him and studied the man who had been a shadow in my life for days. The unseen handler in a family drama that had escalated to police lights and hospital memos. He was less intimidating up close. His bravado looked like paint on rust. "You do work for people in our neighborhood," I said. "You move things. You take envelopes." He snorted. "You talk too much for someone who's been accused of stealing." "That's the point." Kept my voice low. "My sister reported me for taking an envelope with $2,000. I didn't. But I found out you were at Willow Storage." I slid a photo from my phone across the table. Ramon's van, mid-peel logo. He didn't flinch. "You got me," he said, eyes darting. "So what? You gonna tattle?" "No," I leaned forward. "I want to know whose money you're taking, Ramon. Who's paying? And why would my sister call the cops on me when she's the one hiding envelopes?" He laughed then, a quick brittle sound. "You don't want to get mixed up in this, chica. People don't like their ledger opened." "I'd rather get my life back than play scared," I said. "I got suspended from my job because of her. You made a choice, helping her hide money. Which means you know where it goes." He watched me for a long moment, like weighing the cost of a word. Then he did something stupid. He smiled like he'd been caught but didn't care. "Look, Jess ain't stupid. She's got problems, but she's smart enough to keep things moving. I get envelopes, I move 'em. Sometimes I cash 'em. No one asks questions." "Who gives her the money?" Pressed. He shrugged. "A few guys. Names change. One of 'em's called Mike. Big hands, likes to play tough. Another." He hesitated. "There's someone, Rico. He's not local. He sends cash through people like me." "Rico." I wrote the name down in my head. "Where does Rico meet them? Who's he connected to?" Ramon's eyes flicked to the kitchen, where a waitress refilled coffee cups like a metronome. "You don't want to know, lady. You poke a hornet's nest and you get stung." "Maybe I'm already stung," I said, and it was true. The hospital suspension, the anonymous threat, the voicemail from my mother when she'd said, "She said you took it." All of it stung like a hornet. But I do want to know. Because if Rico is funneling money, if my sister is taking it, that's not just family drama. It's something that can get people hurt. He looked down at his hands. For a beat I thought he might cry. Instead he did something else. He reached into his jacket, fished out a small paper receipt, and slid it across the table like a surrender. Storage Unit 31, he said. Paid 3 months. Cash every 2 weeks. He tapped the receipt. Name on the sign-up. Fake. Says, Rebecca Moore. But the phone. It's a burner. The guy who pays me uses the same burner 2 nights in a row sometimes. I remember numbers. I'm nobody's idiot. It was the first solid thing I'd been handed. Paper that connected my sister's envelopes to a storage unit and a payment pattern. I took a breath that felt like catching a rope. Why tell me this? He asked. He shrugged. Because you got guts. And because I'm tired of playing middleman for people who don't respect me. And maybe because you look like someone who could make sure I don't get into more trouble. He wanted something. My gut said it was cash. Ramon's kind of greed was quick to the wallet. But I didn't have that kind of money to bargain with. I had a nursing paycheck on ice and justice to claw back. So I offered him the only currency I had. A promise. If you give me the names, the numbers you know, and let me take a copy of that receipt, I'll make sure the cops don't dig into your past. I'll hand it to them with context. You walk away clean. He studied me, calculating, then slid the receipt across. You better be smart, chica. If Rico smells like trouble, you fold. I tucked the receipt into my pocket like treasure. Outside, the rain had started again. Silver threads against the diner's glass. I left Ramon with a smile that felt like a blade and walked out into the night with one more piece of the puzzle in my hand. On the drive home, my hands were steady for the first time in days. I had a receipt and a name, Rico. I had photos of the van and the storage unit. I had a short recording too. I'd kept the diner's hum and Ramon's voice. It wasn't enough to topple her, but it was a crack. Back in my apartment, I spread the evidence out across the coffee table like a detective in a TV show. Receipt, photos, the spiral notebook snapshots. My phone buzzed, an unknown number, then a text. Stop digging. This isn't about you. I swallowed, the weight of it settling like wet sand. I'd poked the hornet's nest and heard the wings beat. The next move would be about more than just clearing my name. It would be about who in my family could be protected by silence, and who would try to silence me for good. I made a call instead. I dialed the number for a lawyer I'd met through a friend, an elderly woman who smelled of lavender and used to volunteer at the hospital. If I planned to shove a match into a pile of kindling, I wanted a flame that knew how to control the burn. Ms. Carter, I said when she picked up. I need your help. She listened without interruption. When I finished, she hummed softly. Good. Don't do anything reckless. Bring me what you have. We'll do this the right way. But I wanted it that way. Precision would be my revenge. I put the phone down and turned the receipt over in my hands. The name on the top, Ramon's scrawl, was the first domino. I could see, faint and inevitable, how the rest might begin to fall.